So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first Mason webinar hosted by International Housing Solutions and Crow Projects, who collectively are the developers of Mason. So my name is Stefan Poeta, and I'm from Rainmaker Marketing, and I'll just be facilitating the discussion today with the panelists you see in front of you, who I'll introduce to you in a second. And I think really, to those of you who are joining us, the real objective of today is to really give you honest and unique insight into both the area of Amanzimtoti, insight into the development team, and a really, really good update in terms of Mason as a development, the successes it's had, but also where it's going into the future. And I think there'll be a combination of you watching, some who are existing buyers and owners, some who are prospective owners. And we also know there's a mix of you between those of you who are investors or first-time buyers and those of you looking to reside permanently. And we really hope that with the team in front of you, we'll be able to allow you to walk away from today with answers that you didn't previously know or insights that you weren't previously aware of. So we're really going to try and keep this quite short and summarize. We're going to keep it about 45 minutes and really, really encourage you to answer specific questions or ask specific questions that you have. You can do that via the Q&A section at the bottom, and we're going to try and get through all of those through the course of the discussion. We've got people on the development side, we've got people on the legal side, we've got people on the sales side, so feel free to ask whatever questions you have, and I'm sure the team will answer them as best as they possibly can. So just a couple of things too also, for those of you who haven't been on a webinar before, just in terms of internet, if you do lose internet connection, don't stress about it. All you need to do is just go back onto the link and you'll get back into the chat. And if we do have any internet issues with any of the panel members, all we'll do is just move the question on to someone else and get back to their question at a later stage. But I think thanks to everyone who's joined, and just a quick little introduction on the panelists. Maybe I can just ask you guys to just raise your hand when I mention your name. So Solian Baweni, who is a director of International Housing Solutions. Then Craig Shafter, who's the head of commercial property for Bowman's Attorneys, who many of you will know as an entity. Then Janine Cravenstein, who's the sales manager for International Housing Solutions. And then to Beowulf Hutting, who's the development manager for Crow Projects. And many of you would know that that Mason as an entity with the development is a joint initiative between International Housing Solutions and Crow Projects. So Solly, I'm just going to kick off with you in terms of a broader question, and just in terms of International Housing Solutions as an entity, what do you do and what do you focus on as developers?
Yeah, thanks, Steph, and good morning, everyone. It's afternoon already. IHS is a private equity asset manager. We've been around since about 2007. We focus mainly in investing in affordable housing. We run a pure private equity company which raises capital from DFIs and pension funds. What we typically do is on each fund, we would have a 10-year life cycle for the fund. It is an impact social fund business where we invest in affordable housing. Currently, we have investments in South Africa, and we also are busy investing in Namibia and Botswana. Yeah, that's it.
And then, so sorry, location's obviously a big thing when you're looking at where you invest and where you develop. So KZN, you started off in Umhlanga, and then you moved to Ballito probably a year and a half ago. And I know that the development you did in Ballito was the fastest selling development that Ballito's actually ever seen in history, which is quite a big thing. And then you've now moved into Amanzimtoti, and there also there's been some real success. How do you go about selecting the locations that you choose to partner or develop?
Yeah, I must say, when I joined IHS about 6 years ago, we've been battling to find sites in KZN. We all are Joburg based, and it's been difficult for us to penetrate the KZN market. But I think to date, we've been successful with the developments that we've done. We did about 2.5 years ago, we did a study which we commissioned Professor Francois Viruli and the Center for Affordable Housing Development to really ask them to focus on the major metropoles and help us identify what we call growth nodes, or areas that have the characteristics of being ideal for affordable housing. Of course, you can build affordable housing anywhere, but our strategy is to choose sites that are infill sites, sites that are closer to working opportunities, and sites that are closer to amenities. So you will see the three locations that you've mentioned, Steph, in your introduction on this question, being Mhlanga and Balito and now Amazimtoti. You know, they all have those characteristics that I've just mentioned. So that's kind of our selection criteria: growth nodes, closer to working opportunities. Because it's an affordable housing fund, we want to try and bring those people that we call the working class closer to those kind of opportunities.
Okay. And I know I've often heard you guys talk about how you identify as often where things like retail are popping up, where things like schools are popping up, when there's accessibility. And I know it's just quite interesting, if you look at the Amanzimtoti area as a whole, 32% of the recent buyers in the area have been under the age of 35, and another 38% have been under the age of 50. So 70% of the recent buyers have been under the age of 50. And it does tell quite a story in terms of how much is actually happening and how it really has been identified as a key node where younger and first-time buyers want to get into. And I think we'll obviously hear a bit more from Janine there. Solly, I want to ask you just one more question. I think that the affordable space is a really, really fascinating space. And I think very few people understand that when you incorporate different elements, you incorporate security, you incorporate location, you incorporate things like edge, which we'll ask Beowulf about in a second, how from an investor perspective, the yields there can get into their sort of double digits for investors, but also how over the last 3 years, the capital appreciation in the affordable space has been 11% year on year capital appreciation, where obviously, as you know, in the upper end of the segment, it's probably a little bit more challenged. Why is it that the affordable space does so well from an appreciation perspective, but also from a yield perspective? And do you think that'll continue?
Yeah. So I mean, overall, it's a question of demand and supply, Steph. You know, most developers will tend to want to go to the affluent areas and build the higher ticket price products, because I guess you get the most back for when you in terms of a margin. So as we all know that in South Africa and I think the rest of the world, there is a lack of stock in the affordable housing sector. And one, it's because, you know, it's, you know, you need scale to make money. The cost of developing houses, you know, keeps on going up and squeezes the margins. So in my view, I think we'll continue seeing growth in that market because of the demand. But there again, you know, the growth that you spoke about, you know, it's there are nodes, certain nodes do much better than others. Yeah. You know, I'll give you an example. We're building about 1,000 units, over 1,000 units in Cape Town, in Parklands and Sunningdale. And we, about 2 years ago, when we started marketing, we were selling 2 beds for about 760,000. Today, the same unit is selling for over 1 million. So it just shows you that in Cape Town or in the Western Cape, because the land is expensive. So there is a shortage of such stock. In Gauteng, for example, the growth hasn't been that fantastic as it has been in the Western Cape. I think we're seeing the same in the KZN area. You mentioned Umhlanga was our first development. We were selling one bed there, and this is about 4 or 5 years ago. One bed at about 400,000, and I think now the guys are reselling at close to 800, if not 900. So I think we're gonna continue seeing growth, COVID aside. We're gonna continue seeing growth in this market, at least above inflation, if I can say so.
No, yeah, I think it makes total sense. Interesting that I know that Belito Growth project, from the guys who bought initially to the guys now, has been between 30 and 40% increase. And again, like you say, when you link the location and the ability to get in early and leverage in the first couple of phases, it generally does work out quite well. So Beowulf, I think one of the factors that makes any development appealing is the green side of it. And obviously Edge is quite a big component of Mason as a project. Can you just explain a bit more what Edge is and what the benefits are to tenants and to owners?
Sure. Afternoon, everyone. Yeah, the Edge certification is a Green Building Council Africa initiative, a rating tool that essentially certifies in basic terms that the end user will benefit from at least a 20% saving in water and energy consumption. This is achieved through various green initiatives that have been implemented in the design of the buildings. The most notable probably is the PV hot water system, photovoltaic system, that was designed and developed here in South Africa. Yeah, the bottom line is that the end user benefits from less consumption and therefore more money in the back pocket at the end of the day.
Okay. And then obviously monthly utility costs are probably significantly lower, I would assume.
Yeah, so at least 20% reduction in your monthly utility charges. That's a minimum. So you know, we forecast with the models that have been done to at least, we're looking at closer to 50% on energy, probably in the summer months at least, but on average at least a 20% saving.
Okay. So Janine, I do want to ask Beowulf a bit about the construction side, but there's a question that's come through from an anonymous attendee, which just says, can you explain the potential for rental yields when investing in Mason? I think maybe if you could just elaborate, and how does it work for investors, and are the yields quite favorable?
Yes, the yields are quite favorable. You know, being in the under million market, we are expecting quite good rentals. And again, you know, with the interest rates being so low, which we'll chat about a little bit later, it's really, it's just the perfect market for an investor. And we are expecting very favorable yields on this project.
Okay. And then obviously, I know there are quite a few components, such as like the low deposits and the low entry costs. How big an impact has that had on sales, and how big an impact does it have for potential investors and end users?
It's the perfect bracket for people wanting to get into the market, and then again as well for the investors. You know, having only 10,000 Rand to secure, you know, as a security deposit, and not paying transfer fees. You know, for first-time buyers, especially for them, it's always difficult to get into the market. You know, not always having that capital available. That's already a huge saving. And it just makes it a complete package, and the perfect buy for investor and first-time buyer. And like I said, especially being under the million bracket.
Okay. And then is that 10,000 Rand deposit, is that quite a standard thing for any IHS developments?
It is on IHS developments, yes, but on most other developments, you'll pay a lot more. So for IHS, it's a standard deposit.
Okay, yeah, which makes a big difference from your typical 10%.
Yes. Yeah, because we don't want that barrier to entry. It just, just a securing deposit and hit the ground running.
And then if I can just ask you another question, just another anonymous, but it just says, and this is for you, Jenny, but it says solely refers to Mason as affordable housing. Is that really so if it's 900,000 Rand? And I think obviously to answer that, to add to that, I think when we say we're affordable, we're really referring to entry level estates and entry level living.
Well,
yeah, I think you're going to add to that.
Well, if I can just speak from the perspective of our sales, we've done under 4 months. We've sold 70% of phase 1 and 2. So that shows us already, that we are in the right price bracket and it is affordable. And a lot of people from various areas, are coming to buy, not specifically living in Amanzimtoti, but in surrounding areas, coming to buy from us. It's not just being the affordable side of it, but I think a great part of it is the product and our lifestyle elements, the security. That all makes up this great investment and first-time buy opportunity.
Okay. So Beowulf, just to ask you a question here. So the traditional model with the developer is a developer will take a development to market. If it's off plan, they'll generally have to get 70% in sales, then they'll get bank funding, and then they'll be able to trigger the development. You guys commence construction before you'd even launch a development. Is that normal? And what was the reason for that?
Steph, yeah, good question. It most certainly isn't the norm. I think this really boils down to the financial clout of IHS and just the backing that they have. IHS has done significant and comprehensive market research, and they have a proven track record in terms of design and product offering. And all these factors combined, IHS and Crowe, we managed to secure the land and proceed with construction once the land was secured, and not having to wait for that target 70% hurdle to overcome that. And as Janine alluded, yeah, the sales are ticking along very favorably, and this speaks volumes to the confidence that IHS has in their product and in this exciting development.
Yeah.
Steph, if you allow me, Steph, to...
Yes, of course, Ali, yeah.
I think we are going to employ Beowulf. He's just explained that nicely. But he's right. And, we put our money where our mouth is. I think because we're confident in the product, but we also have call it a fallback position where we also have the ability to hold on to whatever we can't sell in the end and rent it out, and we can sell later because, like I said to you, we're running a 10-year fund. So because we're not entirely dependent on bank funding, we have equity that we can start plowing into the land to get things going. I'm sure the buyers that are out there normally prefer to see the bricks going up when they make a purchase as opposed to looking at a plan. Thanks.
Yeah. And Beowulf, I know you said the sales are ticking on nicely. I think it's a little bit of understatement considering it's sold, the rate of sales has been significantly higher than anything that's ever been achieved in the area historically. And I guess that's a combination of product, location, and developer, and people being able to assess the combined thing. So Beowulf, just obviously lockdown has impacted every single developer in the country. There's no way of getting around that in the sense that obviously construction has been impacted. Where are you guys currently with construction, and when do you expect completion?
So yeah, I mean, obviously we've the construction team and the development team have had their challenges. We're still busy ironing out a few issues. During the lockdown, suppliers have been in short supply as well. You know, I think the entire supply chain has been crippled due to the lockdown. You know, we're getting productivity back up. We commenced construction at the beginning of this month again. And yeah, we are anticipating, you know, that productivity will be dampened slightly due to the onerous health and safety precautions that are being implemented. I mean, if effectively it's to protect, you know, both workers and you know, the end user as well. We need to ensure that there's stringent measures in place. We are anticipating that the first phase of the development, which was we were originally looking at the end of this year to hand over, we're looking at completion early 2021. Obviously, the sales team will keep buyers up to date as the project progresses in the coming months, and yeah, you know, we still need to just mitigate these risks, and you know, hopefully we won't have the eventuality of a total lockdown on site due to a possible contamination. But I mean, you know, we rather take these stringent precautions and ensure that we can proceed and get this development wrapped up as soon as possible.
Yeah. And I still think that it's quite important to remember that normally there's probably about a 6-month delay between the sales commencing and the developer actually breaking ground. So you guys, even with this, if you can concluding your first batch in the beginning of 2021, it will still probably be about 14 months from when you launch, which is quite remarkable. So I think this just puts a bit of perspective into things.
Yeah.
So Craig, just from your side, I think there are a lot of people on this chat. I don't think one can ever educate buyers enough in terms of the purchasing process, how one goes about it, and especially for those people who, this is their first investment, first time into the property market. Can you just explain that property transfer process and how it works, just in terms of a flow?
Yeah, thanks. Good afternoon. So the property transfer process is a parallel process which runs in conjunction with but not necessarily in sync with the actual building process. So what we are establishing here is a sectional title scheme. So the starting point is really for when the developments, or the first phase of the developments at a relatively advanced stage, a land surveyor actually needs to physically survey the buildings and the land measurements and prepare a sectional plan, which is then registered with the Surveyor General. And that process is typically a sort of 2 to 3 month process. And it's only once we actually have a sectional plan that we can commence with the transfer process. So, you know, whilst it works in parallel with the building process, it sort of starts towards the latter part of the building process. Once a sectional plan has actually been approved, the actual transfer process really can get going in earnest. And there's obviously, there are those who have paid cash for units, and there's obviously the vast majority have also gotten loans from various banks, and then there's the bond registration process. All of these happen at the same time. We would then prepare, once we have an approved sectional plan, we'd prepare our transfer and bond registration documents, meet with purchasers and the seller to sign all the transfer documents. And I won't bore you with all the things that happen in parallel, but there are various other procedures that happen in parallel. And typically that process also takes about 2 to 3 months. And then the actual batch of transfer documents together with the sectional plan gets lodged in the deeds office, and it all will be registered simultaneously on the same day, and the sectional title scheme will be established. That means that each individual unit will have it will formally come into existence, because bearing in mind that what one buys at the outset is described with reference to plans and it doesn't physically exist yet, as opposed to buying a plot of land, which, you know, a pre-existing plot of land. So once the actual sectional plan is registered in the deeds office and the various transfers are registered, that is when ownership takes place. And that process sort of kick-starts with the preparation of the sectional plan, and then follows through to registration in the deeds office.
Okay. And then when you're buying directly from a developer, there's no transfer duty. But what are the costs that people just need to budget for prior to the actual process of taking transfer?
So obviously there's no transfer duty. VAT is included in the purchase price. The transfer fees are paid by the developer. However, if a purchaser is getting a bond, the purchaser will have to pay those bond registration costs. And there's also an initial levy, which is an estimate, and it's only finally determined when the sectional title scheme is established, of 1,200 Rand, which is also payable by each purchaser.
Okay. Janine, I just want to ask you a question around this lockdown period. So obviously everyone's back in circulation now from Monday here, but we know that we've had 4 interest rate cuts during the course of this year, and we're now at our prime lending rates the lowest we've had in 50 years, which is very, very significant in so many different ways, in terms of people being able to afford a little bit more than they did historically. But when you start looking at those repayment costs that guys have got on a month-to-month basis, the 4 interest rate cuts have a significant impact on monthly repayment costs.
Yeah.
How big impact have you seen that this has had on your interest and potential sales conversions over this lockdown period?
Well, you know, I know the property market in general has been affected by the lockdown period, but we're very grateful that this is off development. So first of all, we had a lot of interest during the lockdown period, and we've signed a lot of digital leases, OTPs in the lockdown period, which, you know, for a normal house, you wouldn't see that. You know, people really want to go view, but being off plan, first of all, that worked really in our favor. Our team, you know, which would normally be on site, they were doing video calls, and obviously that coupled with the low interest rate, we've seen a significant increase in interest, and the conversion rate hasn't really slowed down during the lockdown period. And from being, you know, fully operational from 1 June, you know, the leads are starting to come in, and those people that have inquired during the lockdown period but didn't want to sign, they are now actually putting it into paper. So we expect the sales to just increase rapidly, you know, and we've already had such a good run, you know, from launching beginning December up until now. So we expect the rest of the development to sell out very quickly.
And then there's a question from Noni, and it basically just says, you've mentioned you've sold 70% of phase 1 and 2. Are there any 2-bed, 2-bath units still available?
Yes, there are. You know, we can give her the contact details afterwards of our agents and get her in touch with them. Like I said, I think they should jump at the opportunity, but they are definitely still available. Okay.
And then I know the question earlier was about prices and affordable space. And I think really the big thing about an entry-level estate is trying to create this trend of being able to create all the facilities of an upmarket estate with security and amenities, all that kind of stuff, but obviously under a certain price bracket and generally under the R1 million mark. How big has that been, or how critical has that been for you guys to incorporate all those things, security and amenities, into the Mason product?
Yeah, no, it was essential to get that right, get the product right with the lifestyle elements, you know, the clubhouse, the play area, the swimming pool. Those are all important to the market, but it's not always affordable to the whole of the market. And, you know, sometimes in this price bracket, you won't get all of that. But being an IHS development, it is something that we focus on. Security, you know, is very important in general to the market, but that's something that we focus on. And like Beowulf mentioned earlier and explained, you know, being a green building, the cost savings that involves. So very happy to say that it's really going well. And, you know, I think the product is right, and it's a typical, you know, typical IHS product and what we always focus on.
And then Janine, there's a question here from Wesley Naidu. It says, what are the projected rental incomes for the units? I don't know if you've got the figures in hand. I know the figures are available, but could you maybe just chat on around rentals and rental yields?
Yeah, I don't have the actual rentals on hand, but the rental yields we are looking at is projected at 8.1%. I'll have to get back with the finer detail afterwards. Sorry, I don't have that at hand.
No, that's perfect. But I think what we would definitely do is make all that information available and get the sales team to be able to contact everyone who's been on the chat just to send that information. And just to clarify, I think when we're talking net rental yields, we're basically talking about rental income less any costs you have, levy rates, etc.,
Yes,
as a percentage of the purchase price of the unit. And obviously, when it comes to lower interest rates, the ability to service that becomes far more favorable. So it's obviously where the factors have elements. And then I think, Solly, just a question here. It says, do you see Cornubia as a good location for this type of development? Interesting question. I don't know where that sits on the IHS radar. Solly, you're just on mute there. Sorry.
Did you say Kunubi?
Cornubia, yes.
Cornubia. Yeah, look, I think I would say, and it's a growing node. I think there's a lot of industrial coming up there. To an extent that there is land that's earmarked for residential, we'll definitely look. Our process normally is that once we, in most cases, if we don't find the land ourselves, we will come via developers. We then do in-depth market studies then, independent market studies to kind of get a feel of what product can be put up. So I wouldn't say no. I think we haven't come across an opportunity there yet, but I think it will be an area that we would look at.
Okay. Janine, I don't know if this is another question I can just pass to you. It talks about rentals, and it just says someone who's bought a property and looking from a rental perspective, would Airbnb be an option within the state rules, and would that be a favorable route to go? I don't know what your thoughts are in terms of the long-term versus short-term options.
You know, that is going to depend on the complex rules, what they decide. If they allow that. I know in our other estates, it's normally a bit of an issue, especially if it's just we manage a large portfolio of rental properties. We normally steer clear from that because it does pose a security risk in having different kinds of people coming in. You don't know who's got access. Do they, you know, are they allowed to get access? But that's, you know, going to be largely dependent on the corporate rules, if they're going to allow it or not. That's not something that we can decide.
Yeah, and I think definitely certain areas are better suited to long term and certain areas are better suited to short term. But I think if you can get an 8.1% net yield in your first year on the long term routes, I would highly recommend that.
Yes,
I'd say take it and run. So it certainly means that it certainly would be quite aligned to the long term side.
Yeah,
agreed.
So Craig, just a question that's come through here. It just asked in terms of, if you're an investor, what do you need to look out for in terms of the entity that you purchase in, and also how does capital gains have an impact on buyers? Yes, you are on mute, just so you're aware.
So the entity, you know, the vast majority of folk buying in Mason so far have been individuals. The entity is really a matter of, you know, there's no specific, given the transfer duties not payable anyway. There's no particular saving one way or the other from a transfer duty perspective. So from an initial acquisition cost, the entity which you buy in really doesn't really make much of a difference. But you know, from a capital gains perspective, I would suggest that proper, you know, and it depends on each, you know, individual circumstances and how the other investments are, where the other investments are housed. So if, you know, but the prospect of a significant capital gain in a very short term, you know, obviously there has been growth in the other developments. One hopes there's a significant capital gain in a relatively short term, but you know, I would suggest that it really depends on each individual and where their other assets are housed and the entities in which they have, you know, which they've contracted before. And it really is. It's not a one fit. It's not it's not an answer you can provide a blanket response to. It really depends on each individual's tax affairs. And so I would suggest that if this is a consideration and a worry, that before actually signing the sale agreement, obtain some tax advice and then contract in whichever entity works best for each individual.
Okay. And I guess the sales team would generally be able to help with information around that too. Beowulf, you're also on mute, just so you know, but just another question. Obviously, one's always looking at finishes, and one's looking at how much detail goes into things like kitchens and bathrooms and all that kind of stuff. How much time gets taken into speccing those and really optimizing that for the end user?
So IHS, as I spoke about earlier, they have a product, you know, that they've sort of ironed out all the gremlins over the years, and so there really is a comprehensive specification that is detailed up front on the development. You know, they look at the long-term longevity of the various, you know, the brassware, the sanitary ware, etc. So it's really, you know, we're going for the cobras, valve fittings, and yeah, it's upper end, you know, it's good quality fittings, etc. I mean, IHS has a brand to uphold, and you know, they're not looking to put inferior quality products as a result.
Yeah, maybe just to support that, Steph, like I said earlier on, we do have the ability to hold on to some units. You know, sometimes we do developments that we call hybrids, where we will sell 50 and hold on to 50%, because we know that there will be capital appreciation. So it wouldn't be wise of us to develop and cut corners and put in space finishes that, because for maintenance, it's going to be a problem. So yeah, we don't cut corners, and we're proud of our product, and we want to make sure that if we are going to hold on to the stock for another 5 years, we have good quality finishes.
I think it's a very valid point. I think always going to be a line to developers who's got long-term skin in the game. So it's a very valid point there. Janine, just a couple of questions that have come through about financing. Just in terms of, obviously the bank group, we spoke about the interest rates, but in terms of if someone wants to get a bond, which is obviously important to purchase, how do they go about that? Do they go via the sales team, and obviously the sales team puts them in touch with the mortgage originator?
Yes, so the OTP is signed by our sales team, send it through to our bond originator, which gets in contact with them. We do require the FICA documents up front but it's basically a copy of their ID. There's a proof of income and their bank statements. The bond consultant will go through the application form with them, and it's then submitted to the various banks and trying to get the client the best interest rate possible. And there's constant communication between the bond consultant and the client, as well as our sales team and the client. And we take them through the whole process. And the banks, you know, they do offer 100% loans there. It's really, it's a process that we take them through from the beginning to the end, and we guide them.
Yeah. And I know we were involved in a discussion with Arbour, who the largest mortgage originator yesterday, and they were just saying that they expect another 0.5% interest rate reduction between now and the end of the year, and they expect that the banks will naturally be forced to be quite aggressive with their lending, especially in terms of everyone's got to help assist where they possibly can. So I think a time for guys in terms of lending, but also trying to go for the 100% bonds or close to thereof. It's probably never been better in this current climate right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then yeah, I think just the last question before we wrap up, Janine. So I feel like a lot of questions are going to you, but I think the question that came through from Megan, it says, what makes Mason different or unique compared to other property opportunities in the area?
Well, first of all, if you look at where it's positioned in Amanzimtoti, it's key positioned close to the shopping centers in the area, easy access to the highways. And again, speaking to our high-end finishers, the lifestyle elements that's inside the complex, and the fact that it's a green building, which is one of only a handful in the area. I think that, and then again, the price point that makes it a really good buy and good opportunity for for first-time buyers and investors.
Okay, got it. So everyone, I think we always wanted to keep it as close to 40 minutes as we can. So I'm just going to ask if there's any last questions or comments from the panel that you guys want to add. Okay. No, so I just want to thank everyone. Thank everyone who has registered for the chat today. All of you have signed in. I think we've had a really good attendance, and I'm quite interested to see how many people have had the opportunity to view on Facebook Live, etc. But what we will do is we will be posting a copy of this on the Mason blog, and every single person who registered will get an email which basically has a summary in terms of some of the questions, but also have ability for you to go onto that blog and share this with any family or friends who may not have had the opportunity to view this. And we will also make sure that we have obviously the contact details of the sales team, although when you finish this webinar, the Mason website will be up. So if you've got any questions, Janine, I think we'll also just post your email address if anyone wants to contact you directly. But yeah, I think obviously the whole idea today was to give you as much insight as you possibly can. I think this is something we'll do on an ongoing basis. So just to make sure that we really can be upfront with people's queries and suggestions and all that kind of stuff. And really, I think an engaging part of development has always been part of what IHS do. And I think this is really aligned to that. So thanks to all of you. Thanks to the panel members. Really appreciate your time. And for everyone, we wish everyone all the best into this first week of level 3 of lockdown, and really hope that everyone stays safe. But have a good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, Steph.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye.